Ever get that feel, that feeling like you're reading the same thing online over and over again?
Definitely, yeah. Like you've seen that exact content before, just like with a little bit of a different outfit on.
Yes, exactly. It's like this weird deja vu.
What is content spinning? Does this technique still have a future with AI tools? Visit Pacta website. Listen to this podcast on SEO and content spinning, entirely generated by AI. Alon Stevens is consultant since 1999.
Well, today's deep dive, it might actually explain that because we're talking about article spinning.
Ooh, article spinning. It's like a
What?
magic trick. But instead of pulling a rabbit out of a hat, we're going to pull, I don't know, a synonym out of an article.
Okay, I am intrigued. So we've got three sources for this deep dive.
Since 1999, Pacta consultants have been assisting business leaders who want to develop their activity. SEO, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, social networks. Contact Alon Stevens, phone +33 6 12 55 1980. Email contact@pact.com. Website pacta.com. Since 1999, Pacta consultants have been assisting business leaders who want to develop their activity. SEO, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, social networks. Contact Alon Stevens, phone +33 6 12 55 1980. Email contact@pact.com. Website pacta.com. Contact Alon Stevens, phone +33 6 12 55 1980. Email contact@pact.com. Website pacta.com.
Two Wikipedia entries, one on article spinning, one on paraphrasing, and then this French article called texte collé.
Ooh la la.
I know, right? I think it means pasted text.
Makes sense.
So before we get into all that, walk me through this whole article spinning thing. Like, what exactly are we talking about here?
Okay, so imagine you have an article. It could be anything, blog post, news story, even something like a product description. Article spinning is basically taking that article and then changing words, phrases, sometimes even whole paragraphs to make it look like a brand new piece of content.
So it's not really new content, it's just disguised old content.
Exactly. And if you're wondering why anyone would go through all that trouble, well, the article spinning Wikipedia page, it says it's often used for SEO.
Ah, to trick those search engines.
You got it. The idea is that the more unique content a website seems to have, the higher it will climb in those search engine results.
So that's why some websites, they all kind of sound eerily similar.
Yeah, it's like they're all drawing from the same well of, well, spun content.
Right, but isn't that, like, a bad thing? Like, isn't that frowned upon in the SEO world?
Oh, big time. The Wikipedia article, it even calls this black hat SEO, which basically means it's a big no-no. You might get away with it for a little while, but eventually Google will catch on, and then game over.
So how does this spinning thing even work? Is it, like, all done with some fancy software or something?
It can be. There's this thing called automatic spinning, where software can actually swap out synonyms, to make different versions of the same text. Kind of like those Mad Libs we used to play as kids, but with, like, a superpowered thesaurus.
Okay. But doesn't that just sound, like, super robotic?
It can. And this is where it gets interesting, because, like, the Great Britain example from the Wikipedia article, like, it can change Great Britain to Good Britain. Technically correct, grammatically, all good. But meaning-wise, not quite the same.
Not quite the same, no.
And that kind of shows that difference between just replacing words and actually understanding the meaning, which is what paraphrasing is all about.
Right. Which I'm guessing is a lot harder to do.
Way harder. Even for the most sophisticated software, it's super tough for it to get all the nuances of human language.
So when I'm reading something online and it feels just a little bit off, like a robot wrote it, that could be the article spinning.
Exactly. It could be a case of article spinning gone wrong. But here's the thing. Not all spinning is bad spinning, because the Wikipedia article also mentions manual spinning.
Manual spinning. So we're talking real-life humans spinning these articles.
Actual human writers.
Huh. I was picturing shady marketers in their basements, not like actual writers.
Right. But this is where our friend Tex Calais comes in, that French article. Because it talks about how spinning can actually be used for efficiency, especially when you need a lot of different versions of similar content. Like, imagine you're writing product descriptions for an online store.
Yeah, that would get real old real fast.
Right.
Contact Alon Stevens, phone +33 6 12 55 1980. Email contact@pact.com. Website pacta.com.
But a writer could use, like, a spun article as a starting point and then go in and add those details that make each description unique.
So it's like the base coat before the masterpiece.
Exactly. In Tex Calais, it even says that if it's done well with enough human editing, Google might not even flag it as spun content.
So it's less about, like, tricking Google and more about, I don't know, working smarter, not harder. I can get behind that. But even if it's not trying to, fool those search engine overlords, doesn't it still seem kind of ethically ambiguous, Like just churning out all this slightly tweaked content?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right? And it's something that TextCaller really dives into, too. It basically says that this kind of content creation, these like industrial production of text, where you kind of lose the soul of the writing in the process.
Yeah, it's like efficient, sure,
Yeah.
but are we sacrificing originality, authenticity? Like, what about the reader? Are they really getting anything valuable from, like,
Listen to this podcast on SEO and content spinning, entirely generated by AI. Alon Stevens is consultant since 1999.
spun content, or is it just the sea of sameness?
That's such a good point because even if that spun content is ranking high in search results, it doesn't mean that it's actually good content,
Yeah.
you know? Like imagine reading a recipe that's been spun a dozen times. It might technically tell you how to bake a cake, but does it have that, I don't know, that personal touch, that voice that makes you want to try it?
Right, exactly.
Us.
It's like the difference between a mass-produced print and like a hand-painted portrait. But they're both the same image technically,
Yeah.
but only one has that, that spark, that originality.
Totally.
And isn't that what, like Google, isn't that what they're trying to reward? Content that's not just like technically sound, but actually interesting and valuable and engaging to actual human readers.
Yeah, exactly. So even if someone manages to game the system, it's not going to be a good long-term strategy.
It feels like this whole article spinning thing, it's just like the tip of the iceberg. It makes you think about the bigger picture of how we're creating and consuming all this stuff online.
For sure. It's about finding that balance between efficiency and, that human element, something we're going to have to think about more and more as technology keeps evolving.
It's pretty mind-blowing. And speaking of mind-blowing, the Wikipedia article, it mentions students using article spinning for plagiarism, which seems like a whole other layer to this.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a classic example of, technology being used for, we'll say, not so ethical purposes. Because some students have figured out that if you spin an essay just enough, it might fly under the radar of that plagiarism detection software.
So it's like a cat and mouse game where as soon as educators develop tools to detect it, someone finds a new way around it.
Oh, absolutely. A constant evolution, which makes maintaining academic integrity in this digital age, I mean, it's tough because the information's all out there, but so are the tools to manipulate it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is, but it also highlights just how important critical thinking is. For everyone, really, both the people creating the content and the people consuming it. We got to be aware of these techniques and like what the implications are, because ultimately we're all kind of deciding what kind of online world we want.
It's almost like we need to like level up our BS detectors, you know?
100%.
Be more discerning about what we're reading, what we're sharing, all of that.
Totally. Because every time you click, every time you share something, it's like you're kind of voting for the kind of online world you want to live in. So like, what's it going to be? Are we going to reward these cheap tricks and shortcuts, or are we going to go for the real deal, the genuine, insightful stuff?
That is a great point. So like for someone who's just trying to, exist online, scroll through the internet, how do we do that? How do we avoid getting, I don't know, lost in this sea of spun content?
Since 1999, Pacta consultants have been assisting business leaders who want to develop their activity. SEO, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, social networks.
It's not about being like paranoid, like questioning every single thing you read. It's more about just being a little more aware. Like just paying attention to how something is written, not just what it says.
Okay, so like noticing if the tone's a little weird or if the sentences are kind of clunky or if it seems like, I've read this exact paragraph like 10 times already in slightly different forms.
Yes, exactly. Those are like those red flags. Yeah. Could be some spinning going on there. And especially if something just feels, I don't know, too slick, too salesy, trust your gut. It's probably too good to be true.
It's kind of empowering though, right? Like we're not just passive consumers here, just swallowing whatever the internet's feeding us. We have a choice in what we read, what we believe, what we share.
Right. And the more you know about these techniques, the more power you have.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. Really eye-opening. We went from like simple word swaps to, I think, like the entire future of content creation. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, just, I don't know, next time you're online, whether you're, writing a blog post, scrolling through social media, or just reading an article, Remember, there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Hmm.
The words we read, the information we consume, it all has a story behind it. And understanding that story, understanding the techniques, I think that's how we can all be smarter, better, consumers and creators in this digital world.
I love that. Words to live by. So next time you see something online that feels a little too familiar, remember what we talked about today. Think critically, trust your gut, and choose your content wisely. Until next time, happy reading.
Since 1999, Pacta consultants have been assisting business leaders who want to develop their activity. SEO, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, social networks,